On today's episode of the Wild Party Podcast, I talked to Megan Klein, the founder and CEO of Little Saints, a brand that is completely redefining what it means to socialize, drink, and celebrate without alcohol. Megan's turning point came during the pandemic when she realized that even a healthy lifestyle could not offset the toll alcohol was taking on her mind and body. What started as a personal experiment to drink less quickly became something bigger, a mission to preserve the ritual, flavor, and connection of cocktails without the booze. In this episode, Megan shares how she left corporate life, blended her background in plant-based innovation, and built one of the fastest growing non-alcoholic brands in the country. We talk about turning down a Shark Tank deal, trusting intuition over pressure, and why authenticity, transparency, and community are the real drivers of long-term growth. This conversation is about more than beverages. It's about intentional living, conscious entrepreneurship, and creating products that meet people where they are. Let's get the dry January party started. Welcome to the Wild Party Podcast, where we celebrate the visionaries behind vegan, ethical, and sustainable business. In each episode, we'll dive deep into their journeys, uncovering the why behind their mission-driven business. I'm your host, Stephanie Lahart. Tune in with me for passionate discussions about overcoming challenges, innovative marketing strategies, and the power of using business as a force for good. So whether you're an entrepreneur seeking guidance or a conscious consumer wanting to support impactful brands, join us as we explore the stories behind the businesses that are changing the world for the better. Let's get the party started. Okay, you guys know me. I'm not a drinker. I haven't been for 12 years. So when I was introduced to Megan Klein, the visionary founder behind Little Saints, I was like, immediately, yes, we need to get her on the show because Little Saints is one of the fastest growing non-alcoholic brands in the US. Now, Megan has a really interesting story because she left corporate life to create a brand that is redefining the ritual of drinking, which I love. I love. And Little Saints is bringing together joy, flavor, the vibe of cocktails, all without alcohol, and infusing every sip with functional mushrooms, botanical extracts, and what we call intentional living. So, you know what, Megan, let's just dive right into this story because you're basically solving all of my problems that happened when I decided to quit drinking, which was suddenly I was really left out of a lot of stuff. And now finally, I feel like the market's catching up to non-drinkers like myself and giving us an option. So we don't have to feel like the odd person out anymore. But let's get right into your story because you started this whole venture in 2021.
I
Take us
did.
back to that.
So it kind of started in 2020 because it was the pandemic and I was single and living alone. And I went from, going out 5 nights a week and socializing and having cocktails to doing Zoom happy hours and having cocktails by myself. And I, like many, many people, that was the first time that I really just couldn't escape what drinking alcohol was doing to my health. And also, like many people, I considered myself very healthy at the time, like I would like work out, I eat healthy. I didn't have a lot of sugar except for my alcohol. I meditated, I did yoga, and then I was having a couple cocktails at night. And like, many people still do that and feel fine. I just didn't. Like I was just like I felt like I had a fog over myself. I was still in business school at the time, like it was all remote, but I was just like, this is not good for my brain. And so I tried dry January. I had tried dry January like 15 times or something. I tried it every year and failed. And then so that year I was living in Detroit. I had a big dining table. I ordered everything and lots of beautiful brands that are still out there today, but everything was full of sugar. And I was like, if I'm going to drink sugar, I'm just going to drink alcohol. Like, why would I do that, at night? And nothing had like a really strong nose to it. Like, as you can see right now, I'm drinking Little Saint Oak, our whiskey alternative. And like, it smells like a cocktail. Like I can smell the wood and stuff. Nothing had a nose, so then our bodies aren't going to be tricked into thinking, we're having an adult drink. And then also nothing had like functional mushrooms that I was really looking for. And so that's why I started Little Saints.
I think the pandemic was such a turning point for so many people because they did start drinking a lot at home. I've had many friends that said that. They're like, "Wow, I really needed to cut down after the pandemic because it just became like this at-home ritual." For me, my personal story was, you know what? About 12 years ago, I was just going through a lot of stress in my life. And I remember one day having this very distinct realization that I was waiting for cocktail hour to come around. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to have a cocktail. And immediately my next thought was like, I don't want that to be my reaction to a stressful day. I just don't think it's helpful. And I was actually starting to run marathons at that time, and I was still drinking. And I would, drink and then go marathon training and feeling terrible. I'm like, this is not a good idea. I just need to not do it. So, like you, I did a whole month, and this was actually in November. I was like, I'm just not going to drink for a month, and I felt so good. I'm like, I wonder if I could do this for another month. And then that turned into 6 months and then to a year. And then I found, you know what? I don't really need to drink to have a good time. However, what I did realize that is I did start to feel very alienated from my friend group because I realized how much of our lives really centered around drinking. And I was like, oh, if I don't want to go to these places where people are drinking, then what am I going to do? So I basically got a whole new friend group. I started doing a lot more kind of like activities during the day and things like that. But there's still times now where I go to a social event that I do feel like, oh, I'm not having a cocktail. So it was only this year that I started to try some of these non-alcoholic offerings on the market. And like you, I was not super excited by them.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to be said as far as like fulfilling the need in the market. And I'm in Los Angeles. We actually have entire bars now that are centered around.
Yeah, you guys have great selection out there.
We do, which has been really great. But again, trying something that really has that taste and that feeling. If you guys are watching the YouTube video right now, Megan is actually sitting there.
Oh, I'm
She's sitting.
drinking I'm drinking a Manhattan that I made with our St. Oak, and I made it with like a nice non-alc aperitif and a shake of walnut bitters.
Yeah. That just really lends to the fact of when you're in a social grouping, you want to feel accepted by the group. You don't want to feel like the weirdo on the outside standing there with your seltzer water. So to be able to have a cocktail in a glass that looks, smells, and feels like a cocktail, there's a lot to be said. So I was totally on board. And to let everyone know, yes, Megan's team did send me a sampler box, which normally on this show I would hold up products. I have no products left. I drank them all.
Oh, I'm
I
glad to hear. I'm
I
happy to
thought they were
hear.
fantastic. I was so much more like I enjoyed them so much more than I even thought I would. And I know in your packaging it says, "Oh, it relaxes you, it gives you this and that feeling." And I don't know if it was just psychosomatic, but I did kind of feel like a little bit of just like a pleasure feeling. I wasn't feeling buzzed. I didn't feel it out of my head. But explain to us then what that journey was like for you to kind of create this concoction that you felt was giving people that feeling of having something special, but not feeling like, I guess just like a fake drink that just felt fake and icky.
I mean, it really stemmed out. It was like my desire to, no, there's nothing worse than a juice mocktail. Like, so many restaurants still just have like their like mocktail menu. We call our drinks non-alcoholic cocktails, but they have the mocktail menu and it's just juice. And like, people are usually not drinking alcohol for health reasons of some sort, like either like feel better emotionally, feel better physically. And so they don't want the juice. And so that was just really important to me that like Little Saints did not have juice in it because I knew like if people want to mix it with that, that's fine. The packaging was really important to me, like I didn't want something that looked like a LaCroix. Like I didn't want something that looked like a soda. Like I drink all of those things and love them. I just wanted something that really signified nighttime and would be something I would feel totally included and cool drinking at a party, drinking at a beach, drinking like, at a pool that would like look much more like a beer or like a ready to drink cocktail would than just like a juice water. So it was really like said differently, it's the ingredients, like no juice, and then it's really the look and the feel of the packaging. And as you've seen, like we sent you our cans, we always say like best served on ice. I mean, I drink them out of our cans all day long. I love them, but like the glassware and the ritual of drinking is important. Like people, humans have been raising a glass since like, they were dwelling in caves. We've been raising a glass, you find chalices, we've been doing this for a long time. And like that's still important to people. Like I get ads on Instagram all the time and it's like, I don't drink wine anymore because I have this gummy. And it's like, that's not true. Like you're not replacing the ritual of like cheersing and smelling a glass and having something to put up and down to your mouth with anything else other than like a cocktail substitute. And that's like really where Little Saints comes in. And so to go back to like me starting Little Saints, I actually didn't quit drinking at all, right away at all. I quit about a year and a half in, but I really made it for people like myself at that time who still wanted to drink alcohol. They just wanted to drink less. And actually, 94% of Little Saints customers still do drink alcohol. And I think that's because we are very alcohol adjacent. I mean, you've gotten our spirit bottles, like this looks like this is a mezcal bottle. It just happens to not have alcohol in it. Like we are very like alcohol adjacent. And so, I think that just making it, so anyways, so I made it for people who still drink alcohol. And then it was really my own experience with drinking less and less that had me quit. And I did not have as easy as a time with it as you did. I realized I was doing the same thing. I was like thinking about when I could have a drink, and I felt super guilty because at the time I had just started Little Saints. It was a tiny company at the time, but I was like feeling super guilty about, because at that time, like there was more polarity in the non-alc industry. It was either like you drank alcohol or you didn't. And I felt like I was like a little bit of a hypocrite having Little Saints and still drinking alcohol. I wouldn't make that today at all because like everyone on Team Little Saints still drinks alcohol. I think that's important. So we're still like, making sure that we are like a spirits brand and like keeping that kind of spirit of like the nighttime drinking together. But yeah, so then when I quit drinking, it was really because I was just like, the less I would drink, the more horrible I would feel when I did drink. Like I quit drinking when I was 43. I'm 46 now. And like, I don't know about you, but I was just like, every time I would go back to alcohol, I would just have like the worst hangover. And then I would feel so guilty about it. And I was just like, what am I doing? But even though I was feeling terrible, it was really hard for me to quit. I quit, it's like September 21st was the last day I had a drink. And I struggled for like the first 2 months. I felt socially awkward. Like I felt like I wasn't going to be fun anymore. I was kind of like, how do you date without alcohol? Like I
Mm.
had to relearn a lot of things.
Yeah, definitely. Funny thing is, I actually quit when I was 43 as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my
So
God.
I'm 55 now, and for me it was not a struggle because I am very much the person that I can cold turkey anything because I like to make the challenge for myself. Like I said, it was a numbers game for me. Can I do 30 days? Great. Can you do 2 months? Great. Can you do 6 months? Great. Can I do a year? And then once then it's like it was always just a game for me. Like how long can I with, not, I think, fall to societal pressure. But like I said, I ended up just getting a whole new friend group. But back to you and the company then. So when you started experimenting with this, how did you first then start creating the cocktail? I know you worked with a food engineer or a beverage scientist or someone.
Yeah,
Like, how did you go about actually creating the product?
I worked with a couple of people. One, I worked with like an expert mixologist from Chicago. And he, he's a bartender. And I was like, these have to taste like if there's a spectrum of sparkling water here and cocktail here, it's got to be like tasting like as close to a cocktail and not sparkling water as possible. So he helped come up with the flavors. And then I worked with a food scientist with her master's in adaptogens, to really like help come up with the formula. So I come to them and I say, listen, like I want things that are like, tastes like a Paloma, tastes like a margarita. We can't be using juice. We're not going to use sugar. We're not going to use those nasty sugar substitutes. So no erythritol, no Splenda, or whatever those things are. We are going to use, pure monk fruit juice concentrate. And in the beginning, we actually used stevia until I learned that I like stevia, but apparently many people really hate stevia. So we took stevia out of the early formulas. And I just worked with them to come up with these formulations. Like, so it's just a lot of taste testing and me giving them the parameters of like, okay, things have to be super natural. We have to source the best ingredients that are out there. And then it's really just a back and forth and getting like the taste profile where we wanted it.
Right. So when you first told your friends and family you were working on this, what was their initial reaction? Were they like, why?
They're always like, what are you doing now? Because before Little Saints, I had run a salad dressing dip and juice company. And it was called Field and Farmer. The company, the Fresh Factory, still exists. They make really great, like plant-based foods outside of Chicago. And I ran the branded side of things. And I did the marketing side of the product development. So I have been doing product development with like plants kind of and like botanicals for a long time. So it didn't seem that weird. I think, when people thought about me not drinking, they were like, whoa, that would be a switch. Cause I definitely like to party. I mean, I still like to party today, not drinking. I definitely like cocktails. And I didn't want to give up that part of myself because like, I love a dark bar. Like I love like a dark bar with tiny tables. Like I love like sitting at like a cool bar and having a cocktail. I love looking at cocktail menus. Like I do not identify as someone who doesn't drink. Like I still totally drink. Like I want really good cocktails. I just but it took me a long time to get there. So in the beginning, like I didn't go back to it, but it was like super hard for me. And I think that was one of the reasons why I ended up making the spirit. So we made the Little Saints cans first, and that was that process with the mixologists and the food scientists with their masters in adaptogens. And then about 2 years after I launched the cans, I launched the first spirit, and that was the Saint Ember, which is a non-alcoholic like mezcal alternative. And that one, I went through a similar process, but it was more involved because on the spirit side of things, like it really needs to be strong in flavor and scent and like the heat that goes down your throat, that kind of burn. And so like the getting like the right extracts is like even more important because the spirits are stronger, obviously, than the RTDs. And so that one I worked with like a really beautiful ingredient house and I had so I knew that I wanted to get the woody, smoky feel from like some sort of a tree. All of the Little Saint spirits, we now have three, have like some sort of like a wood extract in them. And that is to recreate that feeling of something being aged in a cask and it having like history to it. So like our non-alc spirits also like have like that history to it, but that we're getting it from like some wood extract. So for example, our first spirit, I was talking to bartenders a lot and I was bringing my cans to them. And I was like, for example, like this is the Negroni Spritz. Will you pour this in a cocktail? And they're like, you know what? We don't like using any sort of RTD in a cocktail. Like, they're not going to take like an alcoholic RTD. Of course, they would do like a non-alcoholic beer, but they're like, what we really need is a non-alcoholic spirit that's going to hold up in a cocktail because what they had to play with at that time was really non-alcoholic spirits, but were just flavors and water. And if something is just flavors and water, it's going to dilute in a juice, it's going to dilute in a sparkling water, and it's really not going to hold up in a cocktail the way an alcoholic spirit would. And so I really got like so much great feedback from bartenders in New York and Detroit and LA. And they were like, it needs to have oil-based extracts in it so that it's going to hold up against the juice. It needs to have a little throat burn and the smell needs to hold up. And so then I worked with, like sort of like the mixologist that I had worked with and the food scientist and came up with like the best blend of extracts that we could to like recreate that feeling of an alcoholic spirit.
Yeah, and I definitely got that with the flavor. So I did try all the cans, and you sent me a bottle of the Saint Ember, and I
Oh,
really
cool.
did get that feeling of it being an actual alcoholic beverage. Like I felt the burn, the smell was there, the sensation, but it was all very pleasant and very like delightful and almost. I think when I first tried, I was like, "Whoa." And I had to read it again. I'm like, wait, is there like a percentage alcohol in this? Because it was so similar, and I really did like that. So after you were working with, the bartenders and starting to get some vibe, I know that you actually took your little mint van, what did you call it? The little minty around to farmers markets for people to
Baby
try.
Mint. Her name is Baby Mint, and she is a trailer that has retired. She lives in LA right now in a parking space, and I will not be retrieving her because I have such PTSD. I love those days, but pulling a trailer, I cannot believe that I used to hitch a trailer. I have a mint green Jeep still to this day. It's branded with Little Saints. I used to hitch Baby Mint onto the back, and I was living in Detroit at the time, and I would take her around to different outdoor events. So like music events. I actually launched Little Saints at the Movement Music Festival in Detroit. Like Detroit's like the home of this certain kind of like techno, and it was that weekend, and I pulled it up outside of this music club, and I was like selling Little Saints cans to people. And I knew that I wanted to do in-person marketing because I know from having had the juice and the salad dressing brand before, surveys are never going to do it for you. When you have like a beverage, especially, you've got to watch someone's like in-person experience. You've got to watch like what their facial expression is, like when they smell it. You've got to like really engage with people to see if you have a product that is like worth people's attention. And so that first summer was the summer of 2021 when I only had the cans actually. Um, and I like I talked to thousands of people that summer, just me in the trailer. And so many people would come up to the trailer with a beer in their hand and be like, I drank, same story. Like I drank too much during the pandemic and I just want to drink less. And that summer was so helpful because I learned that like people really didn't want to have to work too hard to replace alcohol with something else. So for example, in the beginning, Paloma is our best-selling can flavor. And I called it the plant Loma, which is like so cheesy and embarrassing now. But like, that's what I called it because I was like, oh, it's not really in quotes, like a Paloma, it's close to it. And then I realized like, no, actually, it's just a Paloma that's powered by functional mushrooms rather than alcohol. And that was really like something that clicked for the customer because they were like, oh, cool, I like a Paloma. Or like, we have a spicy margarita or an espresso martini. They really wanted something that was like an easy one-to-one swap. And they wanted to turn the can around and see that it had 0 grams of sugar. And so that like in-person experience just really helped me dial it down to like, what people were actually gravitating towards. Because at the time I was using also a lot of words. Like there are botanical terpenes in our cans, and that's what gives it the nose. And I would dress up like the terpene queen and go on and about terpenes. And it was so helpful to see people's eyes glaze over. Like, what is she talking about? This woman is crazy. I just want a cocktail that's sugar-free. And then maybe if people like seem interested, I would talk about the functional mushrooms, but I actually learned not to lead with that because it would scare some people off.
Well, guess what? Our audience actually wants to hear about the functional mushrooms. In fact,
Great.
I personally do. So tell us a little bit about that because I know, again, with the marketing, it says, it creates like this relaxing vibe. So tell us what those, adaptogens and functional mushrooms actually add to the cocktail.
So we actually, we've always sourced the best mushrooms that are available on the market. In the beginning, we were actually creating our own. We were like importing reishi mushrooms and creating like the cleanest extract that we could. And then about 2 years in, we found an amazing supplier in California that grows like USDA organic mushrooms in a California farm. And then for the mushroom geeks out there, you know that the potent part of a mushroom is called the beta glucan. And the beta glucan is a fiber that holds all of like the mushrooms like magic in it. I'm not talking about psychedelics. I'm just talking about like the magic in a reishi or the magic in a lion's mane. And so I understand from my previous work with like food and extracts that like the extraction process can also sometimes be quite dirty. Like, for example, everyone's kind of familiar with CBD and that weird taste that's with it. And that's because of the solvents that are used to extract the CBD from the hemp plant. And that can happen sometimes with mushrooms too, or anything that is an extract. Like if there's like a weird solvent doing the extraction, it's going to taste weird and it's going to have some weird ingredients in it. So ours are extracted with ultrasound technology. So it's like it's basically just like getting the beta glucan off in like the droplets from the mushroom. And then like it is like being able to isolate that beta glucan and then turn it into like that is the mushroom extract that we use. And so, for example, if you or I were to fry up a lion's mane mushroom in a pan tonight for dinner, it would be between like 1 and like max, probably not, but 1 and 10% like beta glucan potency. Whereas the mushrooms, the lion's mane and the reishi in Little Saints are 70% beta glucan. So it's like a premium supplement grade, organic, super clean mushroom. And then, we just wanted to make sure that we were sourcing like the best possible product to put into our drinks.
You must have been peeking in my kitchen last night because I actually made lion's mane mushrooms for
You
dinner last
did.
night.
Oh, so good.
So I'm very familiar. What I also loved is that your product is plant-based. In fact, it's also vegan, which, when I quit drinking, I it was also simultaneously I was turning vegan. Before that, I had been vegetarian, and I started finding out that, oh, I didn't realize like animal products were used in the making of wine. I never realized that. I was like, I didn't know that. So again, like going on my own journey, I was like, oh, well, I obviously don't want to drink anything that's made from animals. So that's something that I'm always aware of, as far as like, well, what are they actually using to make this process happen? So let's talk a little bit then. So you had the idea, you had the actual product, you started launching, you were getting good feedback. What was it taking then to actually start up the business? Because I know initially you were self-funded and then you found yourself on Shark Tank. So tell us
Yeah.
about that experience.
I did. I was self-funded for about a year and a half, and then I asked my family and my friends for some money, and then they put money in. And I still haven't to this day raised any VC funding. But I got one of the like someone from Shark Tank reached out to me and asked me to apply to be on the show, and many entrepreneurs listening to this probably know that everyone tells you that you need to be on Shark Tank. Like if you have a product, they're like, you got to pitch Shark Tank. And I love Shark Tank. Like I watched it with my grandma so much. And so I was like, okay, I would actually love to do a deal with Mark Cuban. I feel like he'd be an ideal investor. Like I'm going to pitch this. And so I pitched, I applied, I went through all the steps. Like I did a video, Shark Tank is an amazing process because they look at your company like it is real due diligence. Like you cannot, I wouldn't have tried to, but you could not sneak anything past those people. They know all your numbers. And so I was lucky enough to get picked to pitch. So it was, I pitched them the summer of 2024, and our episode aired in October. And I went out there with an ask. I was asking for $500,000 for 5% of my company. So I was valuing the company at $10 million. And that was, at that time, we were doing $5 million trailing revenue. So that was quite a good valuation for the Sharks. And I went up there and I pitched, and I figured that someone would know that this was a good deal. And it was a great experience. I got three offers. I got one from Rashawn Williams, who's a guest shark, and he offered me a $5 million valuation. I got one offer from Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, and he offered me a $3.5 million valuation. And then Kevin and Rashawn came in together for a $5 million valuation. And I was like, I did it, that just cutting it in half. I mean, that would have been me agreeing to 1 times our trailing revenue. And, my team and I had worked so hard to build what we had, on like, a fraction of the budget that the other brands in the non-alc industry had, like people in our industry have raised a lot of money. We haven't. And so it was kind of tempting, the last offer with the two of them coming in together, but then I just thought, I was like, this doesn't feel good in my gut. I checked in with my intuition on the show. I didn't even really remember doing that, but I was like, I got to check in and see how this feels. And not only did I know that from just like a numbers perspective, any future investor would think I was an idiot for taking that deal, but it also just felt not right to me. And so I said, thank you. And I walked off.
Yeah, I actually just watched the clip that you had posted on Instagram, and I would be right there with you. First of all, I think that they offer too little money and ask for too high percentages across the board. I mean, many times you'll hear them being like, "We'll give you $100,000 and we want 10% of your company." I'm like, that math is not mathing for me. That seems like a big ask. When you are in that situation, how much time do they give you to decide? Is it split moment? Do you have to like immediately
But
give your
yeah, you're
answer?
just up there on the stage. You don't leave. You just decide right then.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure. But you believed in yourself. You're like, I know I can take this a different level. So you did go back. You did find some other personal funding.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, your company is actually, you went from what was it? I think, what were the numbers? 1
We went
billion to
from, yeah, so we listen at the time, Shark Tank aired in the summer of 2024. We were doing like 5 million in trailing revenue, and now we're at about 14 and a half. 15 in trailing 12 months revenue. So we're doing great. We've, thanks to our customers and everyone, I'm so grateful to Shark Tank because it's great for brand awareness. And like a lot of people found us through that show, like, and our returning customer rate has gone up a lot since the show, thankfully, which means that people found us and they've bought it again. So yeah, I mean, we're like, we've more than doubled revenue from this time last year.
Yeah, if anything, it's just free advertising for you, whether you take their deal or not, which is great. I mean, it's national television. So, now what are you finding? So, initially you were reaching out to independent bars and bartenders, but now you're actually in a lot of retailers. I know you're at Sprouts. I think you're at Whole Foods too,
Yeah, we're
aren't
at
you? I
Whole, well,
mean,
you're in California. Yeah, we're in Whole Foods, Southern California and Florida. We're in Sprouts. We do great at Sprouts. We're actually the fastest growing brand there. It's like really fun to see, and that was something where we have not done that much wholesale, meaning we don't have that much retail distribution, because we were really focused on building the brand online. And I have run, my old company, we didn't have very strong brand awareness. It was a great product, but we just didn't like have a marketing budget. So we didn't have like big brand awareness. And so it was really hard to get those products to move off shelf. And so I knew that with Little Saints, I was like, listen, like this is a new category. People have to know about us, like if they're going to pull us from shelf. And of course, we've got cute packaging and the mint green cans like come off the shelf, but Sprouts was really our first test into like, okay, is this like sort of like social media strategy going to work? And it did. Like we sold really fast when we first got on Sprout shelves, thankfully, and then they put us in on their permanent set almost immediately. And we still like are we still continue to have really good numbers with them. They've increased our number of products sold from like 2 to 5, and yeah, that's been like a nice thing, being like, okay, our strategy works. Like we have marketing, people like us, they want to buy us over and over again. And so now we're really like focused on expanding our wholesale distribution. The vast majority of our sales are still online. And sometimes, people don't always want to buy drinks online. We know that. And so we've been trying to build our distribution in a really smart way. So we work with like, not for Sprouts, but most times we work with an alcohol distributor because we want to be sold where alcohol is sold. And so we now have trucks distribution in New York and Massachusetts, Michigan, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Florida. And, that's like a whole different business than running a website. Like our team is great at like running the website. Like we have our marketing team in-house. We don't really work with agencies. Like we really like do everything here, which I think, really helps us like maintain the authenticity of the brand. And then on the wholesale trucks distribution side, it's just really important to have feet on the street and people in the market telling our story and like really building the brand intentionally and giving our customers a lot of care. And with that, like with the state by state approach, we're really trying to get on, like you and I were talking about, like we need good non-alcoholic cocktail menus. Like we need like people to do like really sophisticated non-alc cocktails and put them on menus, because that's really what I think is needed to really cement the non-alcoholic industry, like as like a movement that's going to stick, you know? Or people like, because right now I think it's a bit fragmented. I think that people drink non-alc at home and sometimes drink it when they go out, but still like we're very far from like every bar and restaurant having a really great non-alc menu.
yeah, you're absolutely true. And you had mentioned earlier that a lot of times restaurants will try and just do like a juice kind of cocktail, thinking this will be my non-alcoholic offering. And I personally have a really hard time paying $15 to $20 for basically a glass of grapefruit juice with some seltzer in it. Whereas if,
Yeah.
I was presented like something, a cocktail like Little Saints that looks and feels like a cocktail, and I'm out in a social setting, I would say, yes, now I feel like I would pay $15, $20, whatever they're charging, if they're making their own cocktail or whatever. So I did notice, and you did mention, your social media marketing. Your Instagram is awesome. You have over 100,000 followers. People are super engaged. But I also noticed that you do a lot of the videos yourself. Like you are definitely the face of the company. So was that something very intentional that you wanted to put your face out there? Because like you said, with your previous brand, you didn't seem to have good awareness. At what point did you say, I'm really going to be the person in front of the camera talking about this?
It kind of happened organically. But what I can say is that people, I know this from running my other brands, like people want to trust and transparency is paramount with building like a real brand and building a customer base that is going to, really like be loyal to you. And I think that there's a lot of brands out there with like celebrities, and like that can help. And I didn't have one. And so it's like, okay, I'm not a celebrity, but we still need to tell a story here. And so I figured, that was the most authentic way to build the brand because I created the brand out of a need to drink less, like I have my own like real journey with alcohol. And like I knew that people, people relate better to people than to brands. And so it sort of happened organically. Like I always tell my team, I'm like, I do not need to be in our feed as much as I am. Like we can chill on having me in the feed, but I do think it's important for our customers to be able to put like, just like a person behind the brand. I think that helps. It helps me. Like I like other brands when I know the founder, especially if I know that the founder's been through it. Like I've been like raked through the coals, like I'm just like, I just want like to know that the founder really cares about what he or she is putting out there and like that the founder stands behind the product. It's important to me.
No, I totally get it. And let me tell you, if I was leading your marketing team, I would be like, I'm sorry, Megan, but you are going to be in all of the videos because I do find that they're the ones that I'm watching the most, that I'm, like you said, I'm really relating to you. And I believe you. I'm like, yeah, I would hang out with this person and have a cocktail. She looks real. Like this is not just, a product that is now under the big brand moniker of somewhere. And it's just kind of like slid in there. But you mentioned, kind of the challenges of running your own business. And I always like to make sure that we're really honest with the entrepreneurs that are listening to this show. So if you could share one of the challenges that you had that maybe came up that you weren't expecting and how you solved it, and then maybe one of the successes again that you weren't expecting and like what it did for you. So like a little juxtaposition there if you could.
Well, I'll talk about what just happened because I was like, no, please, are you kidding me? So we recently launched our third non-alcoholic spirit. It's called Saint Oak. I was drinking it before. It's a non-alcoholic whiskey that's like the spicy parts of a rye and like the sweet finish of a bourbon. I love the product so much. I had like really missed a good whiskey. Like I loved like dark liquor, when I drank and like I just wanted that feeling back again. And so we took months and months and months to formulate this thing. It has like beautiful French oak and American oak extracts and vanilla and a great spice and burn. And then, excuse me. And then we did the first run of it. And after about 10 days, there was like a gross, like kind of film on the top. And unfortunately, I had made the call. So it was my fault to make 20,000 bottles of it. And yeah, because that's how many we'll usually sell in the first like 2 months. And I just felt confident because we had been doing this for a while and like I just got bit in the ass. And so of course, like some of the bottles looked okay and some of them didn't. And it wasn't a food safety problem at all. It was that when you put like mushroom powder in things, like you need a gum arabic in order for it not to like sediment and like fall out of solution. And we had formulated it with too much gum arabic because we had put more mushrooms in it. And there was no way out of that gross like film on the top. And like if you shook it even a little bit, it would go away. And some people on my team were like, oh, we don't have to throw all those away. And I was like, no, this is gonna like be terrible. Like we cannot have this. Like it looks, even though it's fine, it looks disgusting. So we threw all of those bottles away. Some had already gone out to PR. And so I was on the desk sides with PR and I just had to tell them, I was like, listen, this is what we did. It's completely food safe. It tastes great. Shake it up a little bit. And like most of the writers that I talked to, like didn't even notice it. So, but it's like very important for me that we have like the best product. Like this is like something I'm super proud of. And like, of course, like any like weirdness is going to turn people off. And so that was a humongous financial mistake for us, which was super unfortunate. But and me and the team just considered like, it's better that than like losing customers over them thinking that we have like some rancid thing out there. But so what happened was, so what we did was we just tanked the stuff, and we have still some at our house because you can just shake it. We use it for samples here. Then we reformulated it, and we learned that with the level of mushrooms that we were putting in things, so there's less gum arabic, but we just learned that with the level of mushrooms that we're putting in things, and there's an organic caramel color in there, there sometimes is a little bit of powder on the top, and it doesn't look gross anymore, but there's just a powder on the top, and we reformulated it a bunch of times, and it just won't go away. But it doesn't look gross anymore. It looks like a little bit of powder. So our solve was, we were like, listen, like it's like a natural wine, but it's not alcohol. It's like a natural product. We don't nuke this. Like it's not pasteurized. We have like, this is like a very natural product. And so we just put a little pretty sticker on there, and we were like, our lion's mane rises to the top, like shake before serving. And actually, like, we haven't really gotten any complaints about it, which is kind of wild, because I was like, I mean, I'm in a good mood about it right now, but had you talked to me in October, I was like, we're going out of business. This is the worst thing that's ever happened. Like, I've ruined the company. But I think it's a good example for me, and I had to remind myself of this for the team. It's like, always do the right thing. Like, what is the right thing to do, and do that, and then be honest and communicate with your customer. And that's what we did. And like, people like it, thank God.
I fully agree with that. And remember, it's not an accident, it's a feature. It's just like, no, this is a feature of the product. This is what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah, it's like that means there's lion's mane in there.
And listen, if you're putting a sticker on and I expect it, I would be totally fine with it too. It's the unexpected where you're like, wait, is it supposed to look like that? But of course, also remember, there are people out there willingly drinking tequila that has a worm in the bottle. So people don't get icked out that much. That always kind of skeeved me out. I'm like, why would you do that? But to each its own kind of thing. But you know what? This has been so much fun talking to you, Megan. Again, I truly enjoyed the product. I thought it was awesome. I think it's such a great offering. You know, I'm a part of all these sober communities now in Los Angeles. The one that I actually volunteer for is Phoenix. And I even told them about it. And I'm like, oh, this is really good. This is something like you guys, like we would drink at like an event or whatever. And they were like, well, that sounds kind of cool. So it was great because a lot of these people are in like real, like true hard recovery. And for them to even be like, I don't know, that might be something I would try. I thought that was, you know, a good feedback. And it's something I'd really like to see. Because you know what? I'd like everyone around me to stop drinking. Because here's the thing. And I know people are going to fight me on this. Anyone after 2 drinks of actual alcohol is an idiot. So that's just me. I have a 2-drink rule. If I know you're drinking actual alcohol, I see you have your 2nd drink, I'm like, bye, I'm leaving now. But whatever. But we have alternatives. It's good for everyone. Give it a shot. With that said, Megan, thank you so much for being on the show. But before you go, please tell everyone where they can find you online, because I think lots of people who are listening right now want to give it a shot. And the people that have been watching our YouTube are like, I would drink that cocktail. That looks cool. So where can they find you?
littlesaints.com is our website. We're at Little Saints Co. on Instagram and TikTok. And I am at Megan Jo Klein on Instagram.
Yes, and if you're in Southern California, again, it is at Sprouts. You can go pick it up, try it out today. I would love to, and email me, because I would love to hear what other people think, because I'm just so excited to have something now that I can drink and not feel like the weirdo in the corner. I mean, my whole life I've been the weirdo in the corner anyway, so now at least I can stay there with my adult beverage. With that said, Megan, thank you for being on the show. It has been so awesome to hear about your journey, and I can't wait to see what happens next with you in the company.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie. It was a joy to connect with you.
Thanks for listening to the Wild Party Podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or professional who would like to be on this podcast, please visit boomtownmarketing.com and click on podcast. We believe that every business has the potential to change the world for good, and we want to support our community to help make the world more ethical, compassionate, and sustainable for all future generations to come. And if you're looking to build your business, no matter what level you're at now, request your free marketing consultation at boomtownmarketing.com and click Get Started.